Innocent, pure, playful. These are some of the things we associate with children, and the majority of the time, that is exactly what children are. But as always, nature has a way of producing anomalies. When we think of serial killers, the first images that might flood your mind are visions of the famous, grisly, notorious murderers that we see plastered all over the news, like Ted Bundy, Jeffery Dahmer, and the Zodiac Killer. That's why today we're going to take a look at some of the youngest killers, the kinds of killers that made us question what we thought we knew about the nature of psychopathy. We'll also reveal the youngest serial killer ever and what made his crimes the most heinous of them all. Remember to like and subscribe for more videos. Alyssa Bustamante. When most teenagers have a Friday off, they sleep in, get together with friends, or simply bum around the house in pajamas watching Netflix. However, when 15-year-old Alyssa Bustamante of Missouri had a Friday off from school, she spent the day digging 2 holes in the ground, which she had intended to be graves. You see, Alyssa may have seemed like your average teenager, when in fact, deep down, she was harboring the urge to kill. After digging the graves, she waited for the perfect opportunity to put those new graves to use. Opportunity presented itself on October 21st, 2009, when Alyssa convinced her younger sister to get 9-year-old Elizabeth Olten, who lived just 4 houses down from the Bustamante family, to go into the nearby forest. When Elizabeth reached the spot, Alyssa strangled her, slit her throat, and stabbed her several times. Alyssa then buried Elizabeth's body in a grave that she had dug a few days before in the forest behind her house. When Elizabeth didn't come home, her mom knew something was wrong. The day after Elizabeth's disappearance, FBI agents questioned Alyssa and seized her diary. Authorities found a shallow hole behind Alyssa's house that seemed to be in the shape of a grave. When questioned about it, the teenager told the FBI she just liked to dig holes. It was later revealed that the other holes found by police were graves intended for Alyssa's younger brothers. Later in the investigation, authorities found another shallow grave covered with leaves behind the Bustamante house. Elizabeth's body was inside. Prosecutors charged Alyssa with first-degree murder and arrested her. Upon further investigation of her diary, police found an entry that later played a crucial role in Alyssa's trial. It read, "I just effing killed someone. I strangled them and slit their throat and stabbed them. Now they're dead. I don't know how to feel ATM. It was amazing. As soon as you get over the oh my god, I can't do this feeling, it's pretty enjoyable. I'm kinda nervous and shaky though right now. K, I gotta go to church now. LOL." Harvey Miguel Robinson. For a while, Harvey Miguel Robinson was known as the youngest serial killer, but he no longer holds that title. Stay tuned to find out the youngest serial killer ever. While in school, Harvey was known for being an athletic student who won awards for his essays. Based on these achievements, he seemed like your normal 17-year-old. However, his life outside of school painted a very different picture. A drug addict who showed signs of sociopathy, as he could not distinguish the difference between right and wrong, detested any form of authority, and enjoyed being feared by others. He was arrested for burglary and resisting arrest, so it comes as no surprise when he committed his first murder during a burglary. On the night of August 5th, 1992, Robinson broke into the home of 29-year-old Joan Burghard, intending to burglarize it, but he stole only $50 from her dresser. 4 days later, her dead body was found lying on the living room floor after one of her neighbors called the police to complain about Burghard's stereo being on for 3 days. An autopsy revealed that Burghard had been raped and beaten to death. In June 1993, Robinson abducted, raped, and stabbed 15-year-old newspaper carrier Charlotte Schmoyer. One of Charlotte's regular newspaper customers noticed Charlotte's cart outside her front window, but when she saw no signs of the girl, she called the offices of the Morning Call. Charlotte's supervisors could not locate her, and they contacted the police. That same afternoon, Charlotte's body was found in a heavily wooded area nearby. Charlotte had been raped and stabbed over 20 times. Days later, Robinson broke into the home of John and Denise Samcali and burglarized it, stealing John's gun collection and drinking their whiskey. 3 days later, Robinson broke into the home of another woman with the intention of raping and killing her. However, when he saw the woman sleeping with her boyfriend, he decided to kill her daughter instead. Robinson raped and strangled the child, but she managed to survive. A month later, Robinson raped and murdered a 47-year-old grandmother, Jessica Jean Fortney. She was beaten and stabbed to death, and her body was found lying on the living room floor with blood splattered all over the walls. 4 days later, Robinson returned to the Samcali home to finish the job with Denise. He attempted to break into her house and kill her, but failed, as the back door was equipped with an alarm system. Realizing he would not stop until Denise was finally dead, the police department sent a young police officer named Brian Lewis to stay at the Sam Cali house in case the killer appeared again. One night, Robinson, now armed with a gun, returned to the house. Officer Lewis heard his attempts at opening the locked doors, then watched as he broke inside through a window, which was left open on purpose. Lewis then identified himself as a police officer and told him to stop. Instead, Robinson began shooting at Lewis, and he fired back, wounding Robinson. While trying to escape, another officer appeared and pointed a gun at him. That's when Robinson finally surrendered. With his DNA, eyewitness accounts, and physical evidence against him, Robinson was sentenced to a combined 97 years in prison and 3 death sentences. Craig Price. Most of the youngest serial killers we've mentioned were between 15 to 17 years of age when they first killed a victim. Craig Price, however, claimed his first victim on July 27, 1987, at the age of 13. Late at night, he broke into the house of his neighbor, 27-year-old Rebecca Spencer, took a packing knife from her kitchen, and brutally stabbed her 58 times. Despite efforts to find Rebecca's killer, her case went cold. It was only 2 years after he got high on LSD and killed 3 more neighbors that police were able to establish a trail that led back to him. On September 5, 1989, 2 police detectives interrogated Price and noticed that he had a cut on his hand, which Price tried to excuse as an unrelated injury he suffered while drunk. After failing a lie detector test, a search warrant was requested, and in his house, police found bloody knives and clothing. He was subsequently interrogated about the murders, and he quickly confessed to the crimes without remorse, even mimicking the dying sounds of the girls he had killed. The victims ranged from as old as 39 to as young as 8 years old, with him being no older than 15 at the latest murder. All of Price's victims were his own neighbors. He would always break into their homes and stab them to death with their own kitchen knives. Price would stab them so deeply and so violently that the knives would eventually break. His victims' corpses would be left totally butchered and in massive pools of blood. Robert Thompson and John Venables. At first glance, Robert Thompson and John Venables seemed like 2 ordinary 10-year-olds. But in 1993, these 2 British boys became cold-blooded killers and murdered a toddler. Their young age, coupled with the brutality of their crime, shocked the United Kingdom to its core. Although 10 years old, these boys aren't the youngest killers that we'll be mentioning today. The youngest serial killer ever will be mentioned next. On February 12th, 1993, Robert Thompson and John Venables abducted a 2-year-old boy named James Bulger from the New Strand shopping centre in Bootle, England. They then led him to an area called Walton in Liverpool, where they tortured him, beat him to death, and abandoned his body on a railway track in an effort to make his murder look like an accident. Though authorities initially thought Bulger had been abducted by an adult, CCTV footage revealed the shocking truth, that he had been taken by 2 kids. Just a couple of days later, Bulger was found on the same railway track where his killers had left him. His body had been severed in 2 by a train. Both boys were soon identified and arrested, and it didn't take long for them to turn on each other. On November 24, 1993, Robert Thompson and John Venables were found guilty of the abduction and murder of James Bulger, making them the youngest convicted serial killers in modern British history. Both boys were ordered to be imprisoned until review when they turned 18. Both Venables and Thompson were released at age 18 in June 2001. Due to the national hype and publicity surrounding their case, they were both given new identities. Since then, the 2 men have taken vastly different paths. Amardeep Sada. Psychopathy itself is a trait where the individual shows lack of remorse, is detached from emotions, and shows extreme forms of apathy towards human emotions. While constituting a minority in the larger population, these individuals are responsible for more than half of the crimes committed within society. While most of them are grown adults committing acts after they achieve their independence and hide them from the world, some individuals start their killing spree from a very young age. As far as serial killers go, Amardeep Sada, also referred to as Amarjit Sada, is the world's youngest and probably one of the most efficient and heinous, killing 3 children between 2006 and 2007. He was just 8 years old when he first fed his lust for taking a human life and his desire to inflict pain on others. His first victim was just a small baby who was only 8 months old. What makes this even more chilling is that it wasn't just a random child. The 8-month-old child was Amarjit's own sister. Shortly after the murder of his sister, Amarjit struck again, murdering another infant who was 6 months old. This victim happened to be his cousin. Amarjit seemed to find joy in picking out victims that he had easy access to and would strangle them to death. What is more disturbing is that the families and the villagers knew about the murders that Sadah had been committing, but chose to remain silent, deeming them as internal family issues. What they didn't realize is that soon they would no longer be able to hide his heinous actions and protect him from the consequences. Chun Devi told police she left her 6-month-old baby sleeping at a local daycare in 2007. When she returned, her baby Khushbu was missing. After the news spread, people started to fear for the worst, and knowing about Amarjit's past and his easy access to Khushbu, they confronted him. After being questioned, Amarjit showed no signs of remorse and gleefully told the villagers about how he strangled the child to death, then led them to a shallow grave where she was buried. Excitedly, he told them, "I killed her by beating her with a brick." He then told them how he quickly covered her with the debris and grass and left for his house after she was dead. As he was able to lead authorities to the recently buried baby, they believed him when he also revealed he'd previously murdered his little sister and cousin. Sadah was placed in a remand home because under Indian law, a child cannot be sentenced to death or sent to prison, but can be detained at a children's home until they turn 18. This was the case for Sadah, where he had access to the medication and treatment he needed. He was also apparently held in solitary confinement for much of this time. Sadah was released in 2016 upon his 18th birthday, but according to reports, his whereabouts are unknown. While it is unclear if he will go on to commit more crimes, or if his child psychopathy was treated at the time he was convicted, it is safe to assume that the case of Amarjit Sadah is one of a kind, which involved not only premeditated, thought-out murders of infants, but also elaborate plans to hide their bodies so he wouldn't get caught. To think that this was all carried out by an 8-year-old is extremely harrowing. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and like for more videos.